The summer of 2024 in Willow Creek, a sleepy coastal town along the Oregon shore, started like any other for me and my wife, Sarah. We'd inherited a weathered beach cottage from my grandfather, a place of salt-worn wood and creaky floors that held decades of family memories. That July morning, Sarah sipped her coffee on the porch, sketching designs for her art students, while I poked at the rusty old lock on our front gate. It was a relic, barely clinging to life, corroded from years of ocean air. I'd been meaning to replace it for months, but life always got in the way: work, errands, the usual excuses. Sarah, fed up with wrestling the thing every time we drove up, took matters into her own hands. She grabbed her keys, headed to the hardware store, and came back with a shiny new padlock. Nothing fancy, just a sturdy $20 fix that actually worked. I was inside flipping pancakes, humming to myself, when the sirens shattered the calm. Not one, but 3 police cars screamed down our quiet road, their lights painting the dunes red and blue. The sound ricocheted off the water, a jarring wail that twisted my gut. I stepped outside, spatula still in hand, and saw Sarah standing by the gate, holding the old lock's rusty corpse in one hand and the new lock's packaging in the other. Her face was a mix of confusion and embarrassment. Across from her stood Margaret Hensley, our HOA president, pointing at the gate like Sarah had just torched a national landmark. Margaret was in full performance mode, her voice booming over the waves, accusing Sarah of vandalizing community property and demanding her arrest. Neighbors peeked from their porches, their stares burning into us like we'd committed some heinous crime. I felt my stomach churn, caught between wanting to laugh at the absurdity and scream at the injustice of it all. The first officer, badge reading Officer Daniels, stepped out of his car with the weary look of someone who'd been dragged into a farce. Margaret launched into her tirade before he could even speak, waving her arms and ranting about community safety and unauthorized modifications. Sarah, clutching the broken lock, looked at me with eyes that begged for a reality check. Was this really happening over a padlock? I walked over, trying to keep my voice steady, and explained that the gate was ours, part of the cottage we'd inherited. Daniels asked for proof, so I grabbed the deed from my grandfather's old files, showing our property line clearly included the gate. Margaret's face tightened as she realized her plan was unraveling, but she doubled down, insisting the gate served the community and needed HOA approval for any changes. Daniels, clearly annoyed, told her this was a civil matter, not a crime, and warned that calling 911 for this was a misuse of emergency services. The other officers, already climbing back into their cars, looked like they'd rather be anywhere else. After they left, Margaret lingered in our driveway, lecturing us about community standards, while Sarah and I exchanged glances, wondering what kind of nightmare we'd stumbled into. That evening, I called my friend, Deputy Sheriff Harper, who chuckled darkly and said Margaret had likely exaggerated the 911 call to make a routine fix sound like a felony. He suggested requesting the 911 recording to see what she'd told dispatch. 5 days later, a CD arrived with the call's transcript. Sarah and I sat at our kitchen table, listening in stunned silence. Margaret had claimed suspicious individuals were tampering with security equipment and might require multiple units for vandalism. But then came the bombshell. She mentioned her husband, Thomas Hensley, and his company, Coastal Ventures, implying their development projects made our gate a community security issue. Sarah's eyes widened as she grabbed my arm. We dug into Coastal Ventures online and found Thomas's plans for a luxury resort spanning our stretch of the coast. Our cottage, with its gate controlling access to the main road, was the linchpin. Public records showed Thomas had been buying up neighboring properties for 2 years, offering above-market prices to clear the area. Every owner but us had sold. Our gate, protected by zoning laws from my grandfather's era, was the only thing standing in the way of a multi-million-dollar project. The harassment escalated fast. Monday brought an HOA violation notice, hand-delivered by Margaret at 7:30 a.m., claiming our porch railings were substandard and our fire pit violated environmental codes. Sarah read it twice, her jaw tightening as she realized these were fabricated. Tuesday, she found 2 cars blocking our gate, with Margaret standing there, arms crossed, claiming temporary traffic control for safety investigations. Sarah was livid, and I had to step in, warning Margaret that blocking our access was illegal. She didn't budge until I called Harper, who arrived and made her move the cars. Wednesday, a $4,200 fine notice appeared on our door, listing fake violations like unauthorized gate modifications and shoreline misuse. Thursday, Margaret went door to door, collecting signatures on a petition claiming our cottage endangered the community. Our elderly neighbor, Mrs. Larson, tearfully apologized for signing, saying Margaret had scared her with lies about our cottage collapsing into the sea. Sarah, usually calm, exploded, shouting in Mrs. Larson's driveway about Margaret's deceit. That night, we realized this wasn't just HOA drama, it was a calculated campaign to force us out. Things took a darker turn Monday when Margaret arrived with two men in official-looking uniforms, introducing them as municipal compliance officers with a court order for our cottage's safety violations. The document looked real seals, legal jargon, a judge's signature. They demanded we appear in court within 72 hours or face property seizure. Sarah, a former paralegal, spotted inconsistencies in the formatting and called the county court. The clerk confirmed no such case existed and that officers weren't real. As Sarah confronted them, a news van pulled up, filming what Margaret hoped would be our public shaming. Instead, Sarah turned the tables, calling the court on speakerphone for all to hear. The fake officers fled, dropping their forged documents, which we collected as evidence. Detective Larson, alerted by Harper, arrived and confirmed impersonating officials was a federal crime. Margaret's face drained of color as her scheme collapsed in front of neighbors and cameras. Sarah fought back with a live stream from our porch, displaying the forged documents to over 400 viewers. She explained how to verify legal notices, exposing Margaret's tactics. Detective Larson joined, announcing an FBI investigation into regional HOA fraud. Neighbors began sharing their own stories of fake fines and pressure to sell. By Sunday's emergency HOA meeting, Margaret had turned the community center into a courtroom, with photos of our cottage and fake violation reports. She accused us of endangering the community, but Sarah stood up, played the 911 recording, and showed the forged documents. The room fell silent as neighbors realized they'd been duped. Federal agents, who'd been watching, stepped in, announcing Margaret was under investigation for conspiracy and fraud. The meeting meant to crush us became her undoing. The FBI sting came next. Agents Carter and Lopez asked us to pose as sellers, luring Margaret and Thomas into a trap. We called Margaret, feigning defeat, and she arrived with Thomas and two fake federal officers. They offered a lowball price, citing our violations, while their officers documented the deal. Sarah played her part, asking desperate questions, until Agent Carter burst in, arresting them for fraud, conspiracy, and impersonation. Margaret's triumphant smirk vanished as handcuffs clicked. In court, they pleaded guilty. Margaret admitted to targeting 14 families over 4 years, netting $9 million in fraudulent property deals. She got 20 months in prison. Thomas, 2 years, with their company dissolved and $2.5 million in restitution ordered. Sarah's victim statement was searing, describing how a $20 lock change exposed a criminal empire. I told the judge my grandfather's cottage was a legacy, not a bargaining chip for thieves posing as officials. Standing on our porch, watching the sunset glint off Sarah's new lock engraved, Parker family, protected by federal order, I couldn't believe a rusty lock had unraveled a multi-million-dollar scam. The absurdity of Margaret's 911 call still haunts me, but so does the thrill of fighting back. What would you do if a neighbor turned a simple fix into a federal case? Would you cave under pressure or dig in like we did? How far would you go to protect what's yours? Drop your thoughts below, hit that like button if this story fired you up, and subscribe for more tales of ordinary people facing extraordinary battles. Let's keep the conversation going because you never know when a $20 lock might change everything.